Hello students, this is a brief video to help you understand some of the key themes we've discussed in Children of Men and break them down in more detail. The scenes described and themes described here have been discussed in previous PowerPoints and previous virtual classes. This is just to help you by providing more depth and providing more analysis of a few key scenes that really represent some of the more important themes. So one of the themes we talked about was the notion of class divide, paying in particular key importance to the scene in which Theo visits his cousin Nigel. That gives you a real clear panoramic view of the society of London that we are in. We see the way sort of what you would call the normal middle class and lower classes live in the densely crowded, smoggy, pollution-ridden form of London. You pass by the various religious cults. You see the disruption and the chaos of a society that is in collapse. As you then transfer to the rich part of the city, you cross through the gate and you see it's in a park. There are zoo animals. There's a band playing. There's order. Everything seems to be fine. And then you go in and meet Nigel in his sort of residence. See how it's opulent. He's got waitstaff. They're getting a gourmet meal. And behind them, in the scene where they are having the dinner, one of the key things you should look for is this is the painting of Pablo Picasso's Guernica. And Guernica is very important as Picasso's sort of artistic statement about the chaos and murder of the Spanish Civil War. So you have Nigel here, oblivious to the chaos represented in the painting, just like he is oblivious to the chaos represented around him. All right. One of the most important scenes with Nigel is when Theo asks Nigel why he collects all of this art, even though the world is ending. As he says, in a few years, there'll be no one around to view any of this art. Nigel's response is, I just don't think about it. And this is a crucial line because it shows that Nigel's elite status in the community is given him a perception of the world that is, one, anti-communal. I don't care about it means that he doesn't care about anyone else. The world is ending. He's doing just fine. Screw everyone else, basically. And dangerous, because the nature of an elite is to maintain the society that privileges the status quo, even if that status quo is leading to the destruction, in case of the movie, of humanity. So Nigel's represents a real strong critique of class privilege by Cuarón that looks at the ignorance and blasé, casual, I just don't think about it attitude of the elites in society can cause environmental, societal, and political destruction. By not thinking about it, they're not doing anything about it. Next, as we've talked about previously, the role of nationalism and immigration and the way that nationalism can present a dehumanizing process of people is a key theme in the film, probably one of the most key themes in the film. All right. It's important to note that the dystopias, as we look at, tend to take a real-life issue and exaggerate it to the worst-case scenario, making this criticism about a current trend, societal norm, or political system. Cuarón's film critiques nationalism as the process through which dehumanization is built into the very system of creating a national identity. The Fugees in Britain are not seen as people, therefore they're not seen as having any value. The distillation of this scene can really be seen in the moment when the film shows you Theo and Key's entrance into the refugee compound, the ghetto, you would say, of Bexhill. Bexhill is a distillation of the way the government treats immigrants in the film. The process of complete dehumanization is displayed again for the audience. Notice how in this scene, the camera can't help but look at the tragedy that is going on in the background. Even though it is in this scene, we learn that Key's water has broken and that the baby is coming. So we have a key plot point, the birth of the baby, but the camera can't help but show you that this is the most important part of stuff was what's going on right now. The way that the government is taking people and transitioning them into non-person status. All right, by dehumanizing and removing any sense that these are people, allows them to be treated this way, contained this way, and removed. Next up, as a theme we looked at in terms of dystopia, is the environment as Children of Men is one that is falling apart. With the exception of Jasper's home, which represents his organic hippie nature and drug use, the landscapes of the film are bleak, gray, and falling into ruin. In the background of Children of Men, we see environmental decay and ruin. We see pollution in the cities, gray, sickly skies overhead. And in some of the scenes during which Key and Theo are having their journey to the ship of the tomorrow, we see a landscape that is filled with destroyed crops, burning animals, polluted waters. It's like no one is caring for the environment, and so the environment is being destroyed along with humanity. Now, one of the things that we should note is that the film can be read as a hopeful message about the future. All right. For instance, one of the most common ways and symbols of this hopeful message is the Human Project with their ship, the Tomorrow, which could represent a hopeful message for how humanity can work together to fix societal issues. And so the most obvious representation of hope in the film is, of course, the character Key herself. All right. In the barn scene displayed here, we see the moment when Key fully becomes a symbol of hope in the film. The initial staging of Key in the barn, surrounded by the cows, her talking about how the cows are mutilated to better serve people, reflects how the Fishers and others want to use her. Remember, she talks about how the cows have their teats cut off to better fit the machine to get milk, as opposed to the machine reflecting a more humane treatment of the cows. Staging Key this way in the center of the animals reflects how the Fishers and many others want to use her just like the farm animals are being used here. Not humanely, but something solely for the use of others. Yet, as she reveals her secret to Theo, the film presents her as a symbol of hope for society. The music swells with a choir, noting the religious aspects of the revelation, and the camera pushes in on Theo's face. This push-in, where the camera pushes in on his reaction, is important because throughout the film, this is a technique that Cuarón uses very sparingly. Remember, how much of the time the camera wants to look at other things going on in the background versus focusing in on the characters. But this is a moment where we focus in on the characters. We see the amazement on Theo's face, this sort of choir, almost church-like music swells up into the background, which is, of course, non-diegetic, as we remember. And we see how Theo is reacting to the first baby being born in 20 years. Then the camera switches, where we have a shot from sort of Theo's vision, his point of view, and this final shot has Key framed in a very particular way to represent Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. That's the painting displayed here in the PowerPoint. This illusion in the painting, remember, an illusion is a reference to another work of art that is not expressly stated in a text, reinforces Key's position as a symbol of hope, a symbol of religious transformation, a symbol of potentially spiritual and societal power. So, one of the things to note if you're going to write about hope as a message in Children of Men is that the film, although depicting a world in collapse and decline, is not completely meant to be dystopian. Key's journey is one of faith and hope in dystopian times. The Human Project is something almost akin to a figure of divinity in the film, something that no one knows that exists, but people hope exists to fix humanity. Right? And people are willing to sacrifice themselves to help Key and Theo complete their journey. All right? People are willing to lay down their lives so that Key and Theo can have a chance to make humanity better. There's nothing certain about their sacrifices, the way that Jasper sacrifices himself, the way that Julian is ready to sacrifice herself, the way that Mariska and the Russian family are willing to sacrifice themselves. All of these are done with the hope that a better future can happen. And then finally, Theo's death at the end of the film is one of content and sort of peace. He has achieved his mission. He has earned a sort of contentful death, knowing that in his head, he has done what he has been able to help Key create a better life for humanity. On the right side of this PowerPoint, you will see Cuarón's own quotes about the film. All right. And Cuarón's own quotes present a very coy reading of the film, where he says that you can view it both as a dystopian critique, but he sees it in his own mind as one of hope. So we've discussed those quotes in a separate PowerPoint, but there they are, again, referencing that hope is a message, is a key theme in the movie.